mountains and mountains, a river flowing down from it. When I see it, I don't see it. Hi, hi, tell me, what is it? What is it? It's something inside you. It sounds so familiar. May I remind you? What is it? What is it? Come on and tell me. Go on, remind me. What is it? What is it? Afraid I'm not hearing it. What is it? What is it? Afraid I'm not hearing it. Little like about to chat and sitting and fights for chilling and yeah, found myself sleeping in it. Mountains and mountains, and a river flowing down from it. Yeah, when I see it, I don't see it. Hi, hi, yeah, tell me alright. What is it? What is it? When I see it, I don't see it. Hi, 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 hi. What is it? What is it?
Hello, and welcome back to Place of Assembly, the podcast and live stream where we think about spaces for creative practice, spaces that house creative communities, and the role that space plays in that creative production. We are lucky to be joined today by an inspiring group from Udine, Italy, a city in the northeastern part of Italy, HYBRIDA Collective. I was really fortunate to be there in February, just before the onset of the pandemic, and be hosted by them. A magnificent evening of great music and great company and great food and drink as well. HYBRIDA has been organizing music and performance since 2003 in this region of Italy and beyond, I believe. And they've had their own space. They've produced their own festivals. They're also known for magnificent light and projection installations. And they've managed to bring a truly impressive array of performers to that part of the country that is at times less trafficked than some of the bigger hubs in Italy. And they've also had some entanglements with the powers that be, as many people who operate spaces know about, so we'll be learning from them about that. And yeah, just generally fascinating people. So let's welcome Alessandro, Francesco, and Julia from HYBRIDA Collective. Emerge from beyond the icon, folks. Hey.
Hi.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Hello, welcome, guys. Oh, I've got to remember. Wait, say that again?
There we are, three of us. On my right, Julia with green shorts and hot pants. On the left, Francesco, bald age, Dr. Gonzo in and many others cannot be there because now we are all living like Michael Jackson with masks and gloves, and we cannot assemble. So we just stay the perfect number, 3.
Very good, very good. We completely understand. We're in the same situation here in New York. So real quick, how's everybody doing?
We are gonna do it anyway. Your show was last ever, but soon there will be a new era. After this long silence, this long absence of people traveling around us, only legally movements are allowed. So we keep in touch with everybody, waiting for the new rave parties.
Yeah, I hear that. as I believe you know, I run a venue in New York called Hollow. Hollow is the entity that kind of produces this podcast, and we've been going through the same thing. So we'll get into all of that, but you know, why can you guys give just a little history of HYBRIDA and how it got started and what you guys have been doing?
Yeah, everything started with our motto, space is the place, one night. After a long time, we spent in an underground cave, refugee for bombings during the World War II. That became later very useful for us as a cultural center run by Carlos the Mummy in a special situation that is called ARCI, Cultural Association in Italy, present in every city, that offered us smoke, drinks, music, books, reviews, and of course a lot of time all night long for listening music and talking about the future. The future for us appeared in 2000 in the new millennium with this light, space is the place, because we started everything working on the figure of Sun Ra with 3 days of improvised music in an old factory in Udine. We started working, it was a cultural center too, but after 1 year, me and Francesco left the city and went straight to the valleys in Tarcento, where there was the opportunity to run a beautiful starship, an old silk factory that the European community built again after the earthquake of 1976. It was completely ruined. The community of Europe decided to dedicate this place to Luciano Ceschia, a sculptor, and to open it to everybody who wanted to make modern art and communications. So we went there, we wrote a project, and we won the right to rent this space by the local administration. We started there a big work of stimulation about all our territory that has been for a long time really closed in a straight propaganda against the Yugoslavia on the border, the Nazis on the other border, a lot of control, a lot of army in this little country on the north and east peak of Italy. We've been doing really a lot to call people up in the valleys to listen music and have good time. So we really tried with the HYBRIDA to do not allow any reproduction of the precedent models, but the aim was to create something new. So we shared, of course, a lot of experiences with centri sociali occupati or autogestiti, that in Italy are the squats. In every city of the north of Italy there were many. Now they are all disappeared and there's no contact anymore with the anarchist movement. We still have ARCI, this cultural association that promotes love and music. We still have some festivals, but nothing is really passed after the new fascists have decided to take the power in Italy again. So now the situation is really bad for us.
Yeah.
Okay, wow. So I have a few follow-up questions about about some things that you just said. So it began in Udine, and you were in some kind of cave bunker situation? Did I understand you?
For the bombings of the Nazis during the World War II, so it was a cave underground, and there we spent a lot of time. HYBRIDA is the fruit of our history, of course.
We spent years in this place that the name was No Fun Club, and we discovered I don't know, we discovered the European scene of free jazz. All the stuff come from the blues, and at certain point, all these things that we have in our mind have to explode. So me and Alessandro, we start to organize a concert in this place in Udine, in other places that we help to grow. And after 1 year, we decide to do the our thing, and so we moved to Tarcento, where there was the possibility to run another place.
So the cave bunker that you were in, was that already a venue when you began organizing, or did you make it into a venue?
No, it's closed.
No,
Now it's
but when you started, was it already a venue?
Yeah.
So you were hosting.
Was a venue with not so many live concerts, but with a lot of books and magazines and a lot of music and alcohol, of course.
Of course. Sign me up. And then you got the opportunity to open the venue in Tarcento.
Yes.
First, the venue in Udine, that was Pabitele, where we ran the Spaces the Place, the 3 days dedicated to Sunny Boy Rap. And there everything exploded, of course. And without any Bluetopia, we moved suddenly, because the other people of the group wanted just to run a club, a quiet knitting club, not a ruins factory as our project was, connected extremely to the post-industrial sound of the moment, to all the movement of musicians that were crossing this area from the most important cities like Milan and Venice, and then crossing a Tartars desert, going to Ljubljana maybe, or to Vienna, or to Budapest, or to the Far East. There was a big hole, and we decided to run a legal place with HYBRIDA Incorporated, a kind of society that we created just to hide our real intentions. And we rent the space from the major. Everything was ready, but the PA, but the bar, but everything else. But we had an idea. So the Commission of the European Community said, you are the right people for doing this job. And we start working. But as soon as possible, the new sheriff in Tarcento, there was Forza Italia with Berlusconi, and this was a little Berlusconi, and he decided that we were a squad,
junkies,
we are
transsexual, and what else? Atheismus. And so on, and so there has been such a great propaganda against us that we just keep it like boxers. There's no problem. We go on with our idea. But after 3 years, there was a trail. They start growing up always more and more the expenses, the rent, the light, electricity, the heating, and we cannot pay. We decide we don't pay. We stay here with a strong idea. The group was growing. A lot of guys from the valleys were coming with us. And after 3 years, with the help of all the people of the world, we collect enough money to pay not the judge, but our lawyer, and afford this trial. The struggling was complete. We had to pay 27,000 euros for 3 years of free music, and we collected on the street. We start with the orchestra philosophy, working on a new community with a nomadic way of living. So in a way, the prophecia became real. So for us, space is the place.
Okay, got it. So, okay, I want to come back to what you were talking about the conflict with the police, because that's something that's very relevant to us here in New York and really probably to people running spaces everywhere. But before we talk more about that, I wanted to ask about something that you said earlier, which is the area that you're in, and you were talking about there being bordering Yugoslavia and bordering the activity of the Nazis, and how this informed your experience organizing in that part of Italy. I just wanted to hear you say more about that, because I don't understand, I don't know. I mean, I know what you're talking about historically, but for me to learn more about what that actually meant for you in this part of the world would be interesting.
It's been a wall on the Yugoslavia border because we could not cross the border and it was completely closed, no cultural exchange. But the really worst thing was that it's been cut a strong cultural and emotional connection with the people living 15 kilometers from us. Yeah. And that's been really the drama for us. Then, of course, the two world wars were fighting in our land, in our space, on this country. And before, all the barbarians came through. So we want to welcome everybody. But at a certain point, it's been impossible to open again our arms to invite people from the east, for example.
There was a big problem with the border here. But a problem that is solved in a certain way only when the Berlin Wall falls. And after the Berlin Wall falls also the wall with Slovenia, but after. And so we can move and then meet the people of Slovenia only at this point. I think it was
2005.
Yeah.
Something like this.
First year of 2000s.
Right. Okay. So at that point, then you're able to invite musicians from Eastern Europe and the Far East and things like this, and the ability for people to kind of flow through the part of Italy that you're in became increased. Well, all of Italy, it became increased. You could do more with more people from other places. I think when I was there in February, it was the first time I was in Udine or in Friuli, Venezia Giulia. And I found that part of Italy to be so fascinating. I mean, Friuli, Venezia Giulia is so beautiful and amazing, and the food and wine is incredible. But it's also very interesting geographically and culturally because it borders Slovenia and it borders Austria. And it's just a very rich place culturally. And if I'm not mistaken, aren't there parts of Italy in that region that used to be part of Slovenia? Or is this maybe Trieste I'm thinking of?
Well, there are, historically, there were, a part of our region was part of Austrian...
Hungarian Emperor.
Yeah.
So it was divided after the river Isonzo, and it was a border in the 18th century. And it's ruined, it's collapsed at the beginning of the 19th century. So before there was this emperor, before there was, we were slaves of Venice. And of course, in every era, there's been a lot of crazy people plotting and trying to feel free.
Just because our strategic geographical place, because we are...
A crossroad.
Yeah, a crossroads.
Cross borders.
Yeah, we are near the border. We are in the very center of Europe, and historically, there have been a great mixture of people going up and down and crossing this land.
Right. Well, I can see how it would be with that history in mind. I could see how it would be meaningful from the point of view of organizing concerts and being curators to have it be open so that you can invite people in from different places in the East and so on. So thank you for addressing that. That's fascinating. And now moving back to the issues that you had with the state, the law. So can you? What I understood from what you said is that you were awarded the opportunity to have the space by this Archie, or I believe it's called. You said.
We had the opportunity to have the place from a project from European Community, yes. And then we started to do this, to do our activities. But we have to say that the place, our venue was in a contemporary cultural place. So there was a restaurant, there was a hostel, there were laboratories of artists, and so there was growing a very fertile scene and a very creative scene. As Alessandro said before, our proposals were not so commercial, okay, and so the people who the external people thought that we are people, and we proposed weird music, and so there was no economic the place was not good in for money, for earning money for the territory, they said.
It begins to become good after 4 years, 5 years of work, because we start the place in Tarcento in 2003, and we have to move from Tarcento in 2008. At that point, when we have to leave, and not only us, but the hostel leave, the laboratories leave, all the people leave. In that moment, the center was ready to keep the work of 5 years, okay?
Yeah.
But we have to leave because the trials and the struggle with the administration was, we can't afford this.
Right. So, just to make a clarification, the people that were within the arts complex there, you were talking about the arts laboratories and the cafe and everything. They are not the people that had an issue with you. It's people who were outside of that community who, for some reason, had an issue with you. Is that correct?
Well, they were people. There was a project, and there was a call for having the various spaces in the building. So everyone who was an artist who wanted to live a part, make a part of this building alive, could apply for doing something in it. Okay.
Let me say that it was an experience based on the work, on the research of the opportunity of live by our work. For us, it was cooking, preparing drinks, and organizing concerts and laboratories and everything else. For others, was painting or art, felt, or cooking. So a lot of different experiences, but all together for work. First of all,
very good, because there was also the hostel, so the people that we invite, bands or groups or artists, can sleep there.
Right. But the people that you had a problem with weren't the people within the arts community. It was people like outside of this.
Yeah, of course.
Right,
They
okay.
were in the palace.
Right. So there we go. So now can you
And they never came to the HYBRIDA space.
Yes, of course. So you said that at a certain point a new sheriff came in, and earlier when we were talking you said that a new fascist government came in, and that was kind of the beginning of when you started to have these problems. So
Yes.
can you can you explain more whose government was that? What kind of problems were you having? How did it happen? Do you understand? Just be more specific, because this is something that everybody who runs a space in America, even totally legitimate spaces, we're all facing these kinds of problems all the time. So it would be interesting for us to hear more specifically about that, especially about when the new government came in. I'm curious about that.
First of all, there was a campaign against us.
Before the election, they attack us with
yes, before the election, there was a campaign against us because of our proposals, because of the people who came at our venue, and so yes, this was the fact before the election, and then so one big point of the electoral campaign was to empty this space and our venue because they wanted to change it in a more economic. They wanted to earn money from that place
In a Trump way.
Yes.
Right.
And so that was one point. And then when they were elected, okay, they every one of us, so the restaurant, we, HYBRIDA, and the other guys had a lot of space, expenses, okay, electricity, water, and rent, and so on. But they were very high prices, and we asked for clarifications, and we wanted to know why they asked us 25,000 euros, you know.
Sure, that seems reasonable.
But they didn't. The documents never appeared.
Yes.
Right. So.
Right. So basically, there was an issue with what you were doing because people objected to it aesthetically and socially, and also felt that they could be making more money if something else were there, and their tactic for getting rid of you was to impose very high prices on you being there that eventually you would not be able to pay.
It's something very similar to the process of gentrification that happened in the same time in Milan, in Venice, in Rome, in Naples, in all the cities of Italy during the government Berlusconi. They wanted just to exploit all these neighborhoods close to the stations where there were old buildings and where there was occupied spaces, where people used to live with low rents, where all the normal people began to live together, sharing experiences and new identities, because a lot of immigrants came to this place again from Africa, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan, from India, from China, from all over the world, especially walking through the Balkans. So the border began to become again an open gate for a new world, for a lot of people that we wanted to invite to live with us. But the political vision at the main level was to close everything again, was to instead create again fear of the strangers, fear of the difference, fear of everything. So it was really a strong cultural process that through the money destroyed many years of resistance. After the wars here, we just had experiences of surviving instead of having something to eat, but of course also something to listen to, something to think about, cultural hunger.
Yeah.
Right.
And we are still hungry.
And talking about squats, as you've talked before, okay, there were many squats here until the late 90s, but after Berlusconi, all the big part of these venues of these places are not no longer alive. So we in Italy now there are very few squats if compared to 20 years
90s.
ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I played in two different squats in Milan, one of them twice. The names are going to escape me, but there was one very famous squat in Milan that was in a former bank, I think. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Leoncavallo.
Yeah. Man, this was such an amazing place. It's really interesting because I understand that all of the squats have been shut down increasingly since the 90s, and it seems like during Berlusconi there was a lot of, it became impossible to continue to operate the squats. And I played at the squat that we mentioned that I still don't know how to pronounce twice in a period of 2 or 3 years. And when I was there, like coming from New York City, a building like that, the idea that we would be able to just squat that somehow and that it wouldn't just be, militaristically shut down by the police immediately. I mean, is it's just, it's hard to explain as a New Yorker going to this building and understanding that it's a squat and just thinking like, and they're not just gonna come in here and just arrest everybody, like just right now. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like you couldn't do this for one night in New York. You know what I mean? And it's really, I mean, it's an incredible cultural heritage, and it's something that I want to talk more about.
Because the really crazy thing is that the conquista,
Conquest.
taking these spaces costs the life of people. A lot of young guys died in the 70s
Yeah.
Yeah.
because of this experiment of taking back
The spaces.
the spaces that were completely proibito. There was no way of doing something different but taking a space and defend it at cost of the life. In Leoncavallo, there are victims. In every other squat in Italy, there's been people killed by the police or by the fascists or by someone else. 1, 2, it doesn't matter. It's always a high price.
Wow. So that movement began in a sense in the 70s, and at its inception in the beginning, it was a kind of battle to take these spaces back from the government, from the state. Is that correct? And so
First, to take the spaces black and to stop this kind of living. They really wanted to stop this cultural message to the people, to the young guys especially.
That you can live also in this way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Leaving
Right.
them under the bombing of all the profit style culture.
And the spaces that were being squatted, they were all spaces that were out of use. Nobody was using them for anything.
No.
Now, for example, here in Udine, the squat that was in the 90s, they occupied in end of the 80s, and now the former building is
Part of the
Was
local government.
no,
Now it's
the
the
school, at the primary school, because the people who occupied the place um, struggle for take the place, but at the end of the 90s, it was impossible to contrast
Yeah.
not only the police or the state, but the new way of life that Berlusconi spread with
the new Italian society.
the new Italian society. So
So, okay, not only the struggle was not only in, as far as regards the government and politicians and so on, but people, you know. And so there was.
I like the three monkeys. We don't
Yeah.
see, we don't hear,
Yes.
we cannot say, and everything is gone just because of this big fear.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Wow. So with all of that said, how is it that a number of squats were able to survive into the 2000 teens? You know what I mean? Because the last time I played Milan with my band Z's, we played this squat. That was maybe 2018, the winter of 2018, and I think shortly after that it was shut down. And so, but if it was such a battle for all of this time, how is it that they continued to be able to do this?
Well, you are talking about Leoncavallo, that is one of the most important and big and historically important squads in Italy. So they have more attention.
there are more people.
They get more attention. They have more people.
Beautiful graphics on the walls, for example. That's been a crazy moment in Italy. Suddenly, a critic said, "No, Cavallo, there are beautiful tags on the walls, like Caravaggio. We cannot touch them. We must keep them because this is the new art. There's Bansky painting on the walls." So they try to fuck everybody with this stupid chocolate.
Yes, let's say that the squads that are alive now are the most big and important
And they're
squads.
important because they absorb all the negative feelings of a lot of the people. We are not alone. A lot of the young and not only young people needs to listen free music, needs to get stage without paying any ticket because there's no change. So it's been important to leave almost one reserve, one special park.
Right. So if I'm understanding, the squats accumulated such cultural importance that it kind of protected them from being shut down, because there would be so much protest or pushback that they decided they would leave them alone for a while. Is that right?
They have to live in one in every big city, but they destroyed all the very little ones that were all around the nation.
Right.
Very.
So something that I've encountered in other parts of Europe are places that began as squats, and then at some point the government made an arrangement with the people who were running the spot. I'm thinking specifically of a club in Denmark, I believe. I have to, or maybe it was in Rotterdam, but in northwestern Europe, let's say this. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I have encountered this a few times where somebody squats somewhere, and then at some point the government says, "Listen, we're going to rent you this place for very, very little money, and we're going to make it so that it's safe and you can keep doing what you're doing, but pay taxes." And then it kind of becomes legitimate. Do you understand? Like there's a kind of amicable. They arrive at an agreement, right? Has this ever happened in Italy, or Italy it's always just been a battle?
No, no, there's no interest and no need and to preserve this places. It's more convenient for the political world to get rid of this kind of places.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I'm just because maybe it's interesting in this conversation, I want to tell you something about how this kind of works in New York. So
Yeah.
in New York, we would never be able to be anywhere where we weren't paying rent. Okay. If you're in New York City and you get into a building and you're not paying rent and you're doing stuff, that's not going to last. Unless you were way out somewhere on the very, very distant, maybe you could do this for a few weeks or something.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you were anywhere where people go and you were in a building and you weren't paying rent, you would immediately be evacuated. So our version of this same tradition is that people rent places that are commercial, mainly commercial places, and they pay rent, but they don't get all of the licenses to run a club, right? So they have a bar, but this is illegal. They have live sound, but this is illegal because they haven't pursued to get all of the licenses, right? So this is in our world, right, what we call DIY. You find a space, maybe 2 or 3 people live in some small rooms, but there's a big open space where you have concerts and the people try to pay their rent with the concerts for the money from the bar, but it's basically totally unlicensed and illegal, right? So the way that this kind of works in New York City, because even I've been in New York for 25 years, and in New York, there have been a number of these places. At one time in the 2000s, in the first 10 years of the 2000s, I was talking with somebody the other day. There were 12 places in New York that were like this, that were basically illegal, but the people rented the spaces and they were running them as clubs, even though from the point of view of the government, they shouldn't have been doing this, okay? But this was able to go on in some cases. Death by Audio is a very famous one. 285 Kent was a very well-known one. Secret Project Robot, Monster Island, Market Hotel. There were a number of these places, and they went on for years. I think 285 Kent and Death by Audio were both where they were for over 5 years. And so, in a sense, it's the same kind of question. How was this allowed to go on, right? So, my perception, having been very involved with all of these spaces and then running spaces myself, is that the government will tolerate a certain amount of lawlessness, like not following the law, as long as you're accomplishing something for the neighborhood. Meaning, if you're somewhere where there's a lot of car fixing places, mechanics, and there's a lot of empty buildings, you know what I mean? Maybe you're near a train, but it's what people would call a bad neighborhood, okay? And then you go and you take a space there, and now you have arts programming there, and 2, 3, 4, 5 nights a week, people are getting off of the train and they're coming to your place, and then maybe eventually now like a coffee shop opens up, and now more people start to move to this area. Now during this period of time, because you're there, basically, the property value is going up because it has come from a place where nobody wants to go to this place to now people are coming to this place. So then this starts to make the people who own these buildings feel like, oh, well, my property value is going to go up because we have people from the artist class are now coming to this neighborhood, right? Now, that will accumulate to a point where, like if you take Williamsburg, which is a neighborhood that since I've been in New York went from being basically empty, North Williamsburg, basically empty neighborhood, to one of the most kind of fancy neighborhoods that you could move to in New York City, okay? When we first started having concerts there were many empty storefronts. It was kind of desolate, not a lot of people around. And then restaurants come in, and bars come in, and coffee shops come in, and bookstores, and there's a Whole Foods, and then as it gets to there's more commerce, at a certain point, the cops the government comes in and says, okay, that's enough, get out. Because now there's no longer a utility. In the beginning, you were bringing people, they were raising the value. Now, the people who are there, they'd rather you not be there. Now you're lowering the value. So now it's time to go. and then what happens is the arts organizations who operate like this then move further out into neighborhoods where they will not have that problem. And what you can see from the last 25 years, when I first moved to New York, everything was in downtown Manhattan. And then it moves just over one stop over the river to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Then it goes to Bushwick. And now it's moving into East New York and Brownsville, which is, I know that these places mean nothing to you, but the point is that it's pushing these arts communities further and further away from the center of the city. Because, and from my point of view, it seems, it's hard to imagine that it's not intentional. Do you understand what I mean? That they're not looking at it and saying, okay, there's these artists here doing this illegal thing, but they're artists. And when artists go somewhere, then comes the coffee shop, then comes the bar, then comes the restaurant, and then when we're done with them, we'll just push them over to the next neighborhood. Now, is there any kind of logic like this in Italy?
Well, the situation is really different because for us, we are living into the country. So we in the region where we are living, where we live, there are no big cities. So the big city here is Trieste, and it's not a big city. So we don't have this kind of problems here. Because even in 90s, during the 90s, there were in this area there were very few squats. We are very small towns, little cities, so there is no this aspect of gentrification of an area. Maybe in Milan, I think it's going something like this, but okay, not here. And I don't know. I can't speak for people who are in the squats in Naples, for example, or in Rome. I have to say something that do you want to say bye?
I say bye. I have to go to work. I sell wine. Now it's time for drinking wine.
Okay.
Ciao.
It was amazing to talk to you. Bye.
Everybody.
Alessandro. Okay.
So, for example, I know that in Rome, extreme right party that is called Forza Nuova is really is doing this kind of activity. I explain. This radical people from right wing are really close to the lower part of society, old people, and so they do actually some social activity and social service. So the idea that passes is, okay, they are from the right wing, extreme right wing, but they are kind of nice guys. They are so gentle, so polite, so and so this led them to go into the texture of society,
In Rome, the last week, the administration of Rome shut down one squat of the right wing, but also a squat that plays from the left. So we shot
just to balance,
Right.
but
to put all in the same way, right? Left wing is the same problem.
And let's say the funny thing is that the right-wing parties are, of course, against squat, but Forza Nuova, no, cos'era?
Yes.
Casa Pound.
Casa Pound.
Casa Pound had one big building in the center of Rome, and they were not legally in. So this is nice to see.
Right,
to
right.
know.
So I have another question, and then I don't want to just talk about all the bad stuff. I want to hear about your concerts and your projections and everything. But the right wing government or movement in Italy, is it like a xenophobic, like racist? You know, like in America, the people who we associate with for example, Donald Trump's hardcore supporters, right? There's a pronounced sense of fear of the outsider. You know, like Donald Trump is famously quoted as saying terrible things about Mexicans and the Muslim ban, and there was this kind of, in the last 4 years in our country, there was this kind of heightened concern on the left, of course, about an anti-immigrant sentiment, racism, like this type of thing. What are the priorities of the right wing in Italy?
The same.
The same.
Because this is the fear of the stranger, the fear of of different people. This is the basic idea that have the right wing party. So now
here we are. Sorry, we are just being near the border and being in Italy. So there is the Mediterranean Sea, and so many people come from there are a lot of refugees who come here, and so for us it's a huge problem, this one of refugees, and the fact of the right wing party to it's a weapon. Sorry.
No. We are because of the position of Friuli Venezia Giulia. We are on the cross, and the Balkan route. There is an important way where refugees are coming from this way.
They come from the Balkans, and not all the borders are.
There are not a few borders are controlled. The other are in the woods, in the forest, and so you can
cross.
You can cross, but it's not so easy. It's dangerous in some way, because there is pathways maybe that you don't that are dangerous.
Yeah.
In this way.
A lot of police, also drones who catch you.
Right. It's the same on our southern border, like where we border Mexico. So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to talk about this, even though I know this subject matter is kind of depressing, because this is one of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast series, is because at the same time as we notice that more and more spaces, it's more and more common that physical spaces for the production of culture have a hard time persisting, lasting, staying open. And you see concurrently a rise in authoritarian, xenophobic right-wing governments around the world, right? There's been, of course, in America, we know what happened in America, which it's sort of over. And then, all over Eastern Europe and in Italy, you see this, and I can't name every place in the world, but this is something that you see, and you notice this kind of rise of authoritarianism, and then you also notice that spaces for cultural production, especially on the left, have a harder and harder time lasting. So this is one of the conversations that I've always wanted to engage with people who come on this podcast. So thank you for talking about it. And I want to also focus on the incredible work that you guys do. I don't just want to talk about the oppressive conditions. So a few things. So we've talked a bit about the space, but you guys have brought an amazing roster of artists over the years to your part of Italy, and you're also very well known for your projection installations and your show posters. And you also produce at least one festival that I know about, or participate in producing one festival. So just maybe talk a bit about some of the artists that you've brought and also your projections, and let's get into this part of what you do.
Parli tu dei concerti o parlo io? Well, I start because he will talk about concerts and music, and I will talk about projection and visuals, because I am one of the 3 people in HYBRIDA who during the concerts makes the visuals. So we started making our visual performances in 2004, because we organized at that time a little festival called Psychedelia, and we had, just by chance, some Kodak carousel projectors, Dia projectors, and we thought, okay, we can use them, and we started trying to do what the visuals were in the Fillmore during the late 60s. So just have the colors, mixture of colors projected on the walls and moving. Okay. But from that point, we evolved in a kind of way, and we added more things. And now our visual sets are made of, I think, 10, 11, 12, I don't know, Dia projectors with diapositives that we find or make, and tag tool that now is an app for iPad, but we self-constructed because some years ago, I guess 10 years ago, you can build your tag tool. It was open source. You can find everything on the internet, so you can build it and download the software need, and so the tag tool is something I use for drawing live and animating my drawings live. And so with a pad, with a graphic pad, and one thing. So Dia plus my tag tool and my drawings, live drawings, and Resolume software that mix all together. So with video, we have a lot of videos collected from and founded everywhere, from the internet, from private stuff, and so on, and we mix all together during the concerts. And one other thing is the graphic designs that we now we are, I think it is okay when somebody sees a poster of a concert, immediately knows if it's HYBRIDA or not. I think, and 2 of us are graphic designers, so we did our stuff from the beginning till now.
Right. I first heard of HYBRIDA actually years ago, before I contacted you guys, from Arrington De Dioniso.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
it's a dear friend. He's a dear friend of us.
Because at the beginning, when me and Alessandro start to organize concert, one of the first gig that we organized was All Time Religion, and at that time HYBRIDA doesn't exist. We are only me, Alessandro, and another association. And from that time, this is um, one of the best the things for us, in the sense that um, to host some people from other places and
And share.
share um, with the people that come time, food, wine, and stay together and try to make a connection. And this with some people like Carrington or like Eugene Chadbourne or I don't know, other musician is become a friendship.
Mm.
And so we.
So this is our the thing that is makes us really rich. I mean,
Yes.
because we in almost 20 years we built connections and friendship, and there is a web that connects.
When after the trial we have to pay an amount of 25,000, 27, I don't remember now, thousand euros. The first thing that we do was a gig with the groups, local groups that support us, and this compilation, Free Music Impulse, with I don't know, 20, 30 groups that came to play in HYBRIDA, but most of not Italian groups, like Old Time Religion, Eugene Chadbourne, Mateliot, Rollerball, I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is the
There was a call for help, and
Yes.
and many people answered and gave us a song to put into this compilation and to sell for
to pay the expenses of
yeah.
the trial.
Of course, there was a drop in 25,000
Yes.
euros, but okay, it was really beautiful to
Yeah,
have
it
the
was
support.
it was
these
helpful.
people.
Yeah, we did similar things here at the beginning of the pandemic because the venue that we run, it's entirely for grassroots, street level, outsider music, and we can afford to exist. But as soon as we stop opening our doors and selling tickets and running the bar, we have no money. I mean, there is like nothing, you know. So at the beginning of the pandemic, when you're running a space, you have bills, right? So just because we stopped running doesn't mean we didn't have then bills, that we had to pay. And a lot of people came and supported us, which was really great. And that is one of the real one of the richness is that comes from operating a space, is these friendships that you form and everything. But I wanted to say that Arrington de Dioniso, when he first presented this to me, when he talked about you guys, I think this must have been 8 years ago, and he told me about the projections and the flyers and the graphic design and everything, and I saw this on the internet. So the visual presence of HYBRIDA, it's very distinct. It really, from the outside, it seems like, wow, this is amazing. This is this group of people. They're bringing all of these amazing people, and they have these installations and these beautiful posters. I just wanted to tell you that from the outside, the visual work that is done around the amazing concerts is very, it just stands out. It stands out. You know what I mean? Because I always remembered that the whole time. I said, I want to go there. I want to go meet those people, and I saw in your materials something about Forma Festival.
Yeah.
Now, is that
Forma.
your festival?
What?
Is that something that you guys organize, or is it something that you participated in?
No. It's something that we organize, and Forma is old situation. I don't know how to explain, because at the beginning of Hybrida, sometimes we have the chance to host different groups in the same night. But they came from different type of music, and they not touring together, but for some strange things, they can be at Tarcento in that day. So we decided to call these evenings Free Music Impulse, because there are there are different type of music, different type of groups, and so on. And at a certain point, this format take a change, but versus not versus verso, towards mostly electronic stuff, not so improvised music, but focused on electronic music. And in the last 3 years is and the last 3-4 edition is a festival that fortunately have some fans from the region, because there is application every year from cultural association, and
they have money to give, and so
to the project. So in the last 3-4 years, we can host maybe groups or artists that normally we can't do, like I don't know, Ryoji Ikeda or Dem Dexter, or groups that we can't afford the expenses normally.
Yeah.
Okay, and but always with sguardo, with a look
contemporary.
With a look to our zone, our musical scene. So the musician from Friuli, from
the neighbor, let's say.
So Forma Festival is in some way concentrated on like a sense of localness, like you're working with a lot of people from nearby and from the neighborhood, or did I misunderstand you?
We try to okay, we had the money just for once to invite people, famous people, and like Ikeda and so on. But we try to invite and to involve also the people who plays around here, and so to connect this to different idea, and I don't know how to say, not levels, but okay, musicians from here with musicians from abroad.
Yes, this is another thing that we always we try to do, is like organize gigs in the same night with local groups and groups from abroad.
Yeah, no, that's such an important thing in presenting. I noticed in the materials about Forma that you presented in Kisi.
Yeah, Kisi.
Yeah, I think that's I wanted to compliment you guys on that booking, because I think in Kisi and the other members that were a part of that label Non, that was led by Chino Amobi, that included Angel Ho and Nkisi and Prolenta and people like this. I thought it was interesting that you booked Nkisi, because I find that music to be in many ways a continuation of the radical Black American free music. You know, what Chino Amobi and people like Nkisi are doing. it kind of comes out of the context of dance music, but I think that there's an important connection to just the history of radical Black American music. I mean, Nkisi is not from America, I believe, but at any rate, you understand what I'm talking about. But in New York, it's interesting because in New York, that connection is very seldomly made. There's not a lot of organizations that would focus on the free music, people like Matna Roberts and improvising jazz-related music, who would also include that booking in their program. So I just wanted to compliment you on that booking. That was a good one. But guys, I know I've already kept you over your time, and festivals, venues, fighting with the government, projection installations, beautiful posters. You guys are doing amazing work, and I really appreciate you guys coming on the podcast today. And heads up, I am optimistically, with a lot of faith and hope, planning to return to Slovenia in October 2021. So I'm gonna come see you. I'm gonna come visit you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, of course. You have to and drink some wine together. Of course.
That sounds like a plan.
Thank you, Sam, for everything. And optimistically, we want to come when COVID will be over. We'd like to come to New York to go to your venue and do some visual stuff.
That would be amazing. Yes, we're all hoping for that time to come sooner rather than later. So I'm going to do my little outro, and you guys can return to the icon or hang out or whatever you want to do. But this has been amazing, and I'll be in touch with you guys soon. I'll drop you a line. Oh, and I'll send you the video and everything.
Thank you.
Okay,
Ciao.
bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Okay, folks, HYBRIDA Collective, Udine, fascinating example of an incredible collective doing amazing work for 17 years and counting. Really inspiring. You are listening to Place of Assembly. We're looking at spaces, creative communities, cultural production, the role of physical space and that kind of leadership in that work. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/hollow, or make a one-time donation on Venmo. The information is at the bottom left corner of your screen. Next week, we're going to be hearing from Gallery from Taipei and Alan Huang, the Asian booking liaison for Awesome Agency, talking about work in Taipei. It's going to be a fascinating episode, so join us. Also, speaking of Taipei, we've been featuring music from the label Quantum Natives. Our theme music at the beginning of the show is Art Jam, and today we're going to go out with Zoit Shoe Study 5. Thank y'all, and see you next week.